guest today on the podcast is Joe Russo. He's a writer, producer, and director. You may know him best from the Post Mortem podcast with Mick Garris and Nightmare Cinema, which he helped produce. Enjoy. All right, Joe. Thanks for being on my podcast.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
We've been friends for a while now, Facebook and stuff, so it's nice to finally talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say, your blog and your podcast, it's so supportive of the horror community. It's just wonderful to see, you being out there and advocating for so many creatives in the space.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, that's my other passion besides music in life is horror movies and just film in general. Like I support more than just horror, but horror is my thing. But, I just want to make sure movies are seen and people are heard,
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome. Happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. And your podcast with Mick, Post Mortem, it was a big influence on me starting my podcast. So I really appreciate what y'all do.
I appreciate you saying that, man. I can't believe we've been doing it for 4 years already. It's just wild how time has flown.
That's crazy. And I've been listening to you probably the whole 4 years. Like it just, like I said, it flies by. You just lose track of time.
Yeah. I mean, we just released our 100th interview with Mr. Clive Barker, which was a pretty special one.
Dude, that was probably the most powerful episode I've heard from you. Because Clive Barker's like he probably is my favorite author besides Stephen King. Like those two are kind of neck and neck. But like Clive Barker means a lot to me, and hearing him and Mick go at it like that, it was phenomenal.
Well, and you could see that there was a closeness there, like a genuine closeness. When Clive tells Mick that he loves him at the end of the episode, it just hits you. It really does. It really, really does. You can hear there's a genuine sincerity there that it just melts your heart. Thinking someone who's responsible for some of the most bloody and horrific images we've ever conjured is capable of such genuine emotion, which I think you find across the board. Most of the horror creatives are some of the biggest softies I've ever met.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can make the most brutal stuff, man, and be like the nicest people in the world.
Yeah, well, they get it out on screen, they get it out on the page, and I think they're really in touch with sensitivities that make them genuinely nice, wonderful people.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. And to hear Clive and Mick, like like you said, the closeness of the conversation, they're like two old friends coming back together, and they're two of the best. I mean, Mick Garris, I mean, you don't really get much better than Mick Garris in my eyes. And then Clive Barker, you don't get much better than Clive Barker in my eyes. And just to hear both of them together like that's some powerful stuff, man.
It was pretty special. We recorded it probably 6 weeks before release, and was it hard to sit on that one and not spoil it.
Yeah, y'all did a good job with that. I had no idea. I think a couple of days before when y'all started, I think you're on what Dread Presents now, right?
Yeah, the Dread Podcast Network is our new home, our latest home. Hopefully, hopefully a forever home. We're really excited to be with them, and they really rolled out the red carpet to debut that episode, because that was our first episode with them. It was our 100th interview, and of course it was just the legendary Clive Barker.
It was kind of like the stars aligned on that one,
It really did. It really, really did. It was we had to do a little bit of schedule juggling because to make it happen, but I'm glad we did, and I'm excited, and we've got some really, really good ones coming up too. This week, we're releasing our Frank Darabont episode, and it's just wonderful.
Oh, that's another heavy hitter.
Yep. No, we decided to bring out the big guns to launch with Dread. So
I'm all down with that. That's like my kind of like my meditation time when I'm at work. That's when I listen to most of my podcasts and everything. And when I listen to the Post Mortem one, it's like a meditation period for me. Like it refires my passion for horror for sure.
Oh yeah, no, I do it when I listen to lots of podcasts, and I do it when I'm walking the dog, when I'm working out. whenever I need, whenever I have time where I can listen to something kind of mindlessly, I'll usually put on a podcast, and I just love interview podcasts. That's kind of my thing. I'm not really into like narrative podcasts or anything like that, or even like kind of the nonfiction documentary kind of podcasts. I'm more into. I love like the format of Post Mortem where you have experts interviewing other experts. I think I glean so much knowledge from podcasts, and that's why it's really important to me to keep Post Mortem going.
Right. No, I totally agree. It's a meeting of the minds, and you can get so much good information from those podcasts too. Like, especially if you're up and coming filmmaker, writer, podcaster, you know.
Yeah, I kind of can't. I mean, in a way, they've kind of almost replaced the audio commentary, which nobody seems to do for movies anymore. Um, so I guess I was going to say like, oh, I didn't have that when I was coming up, but I guess I kind of did with the commentary tracks on DVDs. But yeah, I mean, it's so amazing to hear people that you admire speak directly to you and so candidly about work that you love,
Right.
and I think that's a really special thing.
Yeah. Since I've only been doing this podcast for maybe a month now, maybe a little bit over a month, taking it seriously and stuff. And so far, the people I've talked to, like I admire and stuff like that, and to be able to like pick their brain, and I just think it's crazy. It's so killer.
Oh no, it's pretty incredible. And I mean, we've just had a murders row of guests on Postmortem that I kind of can't believe I've met all these people now. And a lot of them, I've stayed in touch with through social media and whatnot. And it's been fun to like, just trade things back and forth with them and just really kind of continue to foster that relationship. I'm very lucky in that respect.
Right. No, definitely. Who are some of your favorite guests so far?
Oh man, that's it's such a hard question. Dread posed that question to us a couple weeks ago too.
Oh yeah, I saw
Um,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
passionate a
and
little bit.
it was tough, man. It was really tough to pick. I mean, because I like leaving out John Carpenter from that list was heartbreaking. Because that was such a huge moment for me. But honestly, but that's the thing though. It's like I met John Carpenter on the show. That was where I first met him in person.
Hmm.
And then my wife and I were out to dinner one night, and we saw him and Sandy King at a restaurant. And I caught him and said hello, and he remembered me from working with Mick, and he just had a lovely chat with me and my wife, and he couldn't have been nicer, you know.
Wow.
So that is the cool thing is, like I said, you meet them through this kind of backdoor channel, and then suddenly you have a relationship with them, which is a really neat thing. So yeah, I mean that was a big one. We've had Mike Flanagan on more than anybody else, and every
Hmm.
time he stays behind, I mean when we used to do them in person, he would stay behind, and we would talk, Mick, him and I, for half hour, and those were really special moments, when the stuff that happens off camera, or off not off camera, off mic,
Right.
like you had just Daniel Noah on when Daniel and Elijah came on the show. We chatted with them for probably almost an hour after their interview ended too.
Hmm.
So it has been really cool to and Tony Todd is another one that was really special,
Hmm.
because I PA'd on a movie that Tony was in back in 2008.
Uh-huh.
So to be able to catch up with him, same with Bill Moseley. Bill Moseley was in that movie too. So to be able to catch up with those guys after, and have them remember me from that movie, and then now meet me in this whole new context has been great.
That's killer, especially having a friend like Candyman.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean the door's open there for, if I have a project that he makes sense for, I have a direct line to him, and he's definitely expressed, openness in trying to find something. So, it's pretty cool to have, like I said, to have that kind of direct connection.
Right. Yeah, I have a funny little story with Tony Todd, this through Twitter. He shares a lot of cat photos. I think on Saturdays usually does like cat stuff. And he reshared two pictures of both of my cats, and I thought that was like cool as shit. I was like, oh man, look at that Candyman sharing my cats.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, sometimes when we used to do in persons, Bella, my dog, would come with me, and
Mhm.
and she would like. There's a couple of the guests she would just like go and sit next to, and they'd pet her belly while they're, they're talking to Mick, and that was always kind of fun. There's a great photo. I don't know if you've seen it, of Lloyd Kaufman and her, um, and it's like it's just but. So these are like special memories you make with these people who you just grew up idolizing. Um,
Right. Yeah. I mean, the stories you have. I mean, yeah. So what got you into the film world? What got started? How did it all get started for you?
well, I always grew up loving movies. My parents were movie people, and they imbued that onto me. We weren't really sports people.
Hmm.
They were movie people. So, growing up in Connecticut, there are no professional sports teams. There was, it was like that was what we spent our time doing, was we went to the movies and we rented movies, and and they passed that kind of infectious love onto me.
Hmm.
But growing up in Connecticut, and then you're on the East Coast, so you probably feel the same. It's so far removed from Hollywood
Oh yeah.
that I never considered it as a potential career. I never thought that I would end up in Los Angeles. I mean, at the time, I figured I was gonna marry the girl that I started dating my senior year of high school, and go work at her dad's company, and put a gun in my mouth. But luckily none of those things came to pass,
Hmm.
because I ended up transferring from my Connecticut East Coast school that I was in, to Arizona State. My parents had moved out there, and I could get in-state tuition at ASU, and I basically wouldn't have any debt if I transferred. So, you know, I don't know, I don't know why, but I was just like, that sounds like a smart decision to leave school with no debt. So I took my parents up on it and I transferred. And when I got out to Phoenix, I kind of realized I was so much closer to Los Angeles now, and there was more of a viable film scene happening in Arizona, because at the time they had a tax incentive
Hmm.
that it felt like something that became tangible. But really, truly, the moment where I started to consider this as a career was, um, a friend of mine, who was kind of like our high school Steven Spielberg wannabe. He took me to a weekend filmmaking seminar, called the Action Cut Filmmaking Seminar, with this director named Guy Magar, who was, I think he directed Children of the Corn 5 or 6. I can't remember which.
Uh-huh.
And I sat there the whole weekend, and he kind of walked you through the basics of, production, and I was like, oh wow, I think I could do this.
Hmm.
It was so naive, but and so surface level that I didn't quite grasp what I was really getting into. But by the time I got out to Arizona State, that I had made the decision that I was gonna go into film.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you did.
Thanks, man. Me too. I literally don't know what I would be doing otherwise. So, and I do think that is important. I think you kind of can't have a plan B, because I think plan B will become plan A very quickly with how challenging it is, you know?
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Um, like that's like doing the whole with me and the podcast stuff, man. I'm not really a people person. I've been playing music half my life, and I'm on stage with the guitar. I get to hide behind the guitar and mic, so I don't really
Yeah.
deal with people too much. So doing this, like talking, person to person like this is a challenge for me, and it's a good challenge because I think it's paying off, and this would
Well,
be
the good
like
the
a
good thing
plan
is
A.
you're talking about something you love,
Right.
which is movies and horror.
Mm.
So that it's not like you're you're sitting here and we're talking about calculus,
Right.
which I really hope you don't have any calculus questions for me because I do not have the answers.
Well, I
Uh,
only had three, so I just
oh,
erased those.
oh God. No, man, I look, when I was in high school, I sang. I was in chorus, which is a million years away from what you're doing with on
Mhm.
stage. But there is a real rush to being on stage. There's a real the performance and the artistry of it is it's something pretty incredible. It really is a rush that
It is.
that can't be replicated unless you've done it. You know. So I get it. I get that. I wish I could play an instrument. I never had the patience to really learn. I tried learning guitar. I tried learning piano, but I just couldn't. The problem is I went to middle
Hmm.
school and high school with my now composer, who was just a brilliant musician. Like he is incredible,
Hmm.
and it was so intimidating to watch him just pick up an instrument and play it. And I realized, like, I don't know, like a week or two ago, I was like, I think that's why I quit trying to learn piano.
Uh,
Because there was no way for me to keep up with how good he was, how naturally good he was. In retrospect, I realized that, like, I'm looking at the next John Williams.
right.
But when you're in middle school, you're like, God, why can't I be that good? You know?
Yeah, this guy was a prodigy to begin with, so.
He was a prodigy to begin with. Yeah, no, he absolutely is. So, and smartly, when I started making movies, and he went into composing, I was like, I just gotta snag him now. And he's done almost every one of my shorts, and he did my feature film.
Hmm. Out directing, producing, and writing, which one do you prefer? Or do you like kind of like them all about the same?
I Look, my one great true love is directing.
Mm.
And if I had to pick between one of them and I could only do one of them for the rest of my career, it would be that.
Uh-huh.
Um, because honestly, that discipline you get a little bit of everything in anyway. Because when you're directing, you're still making producerial decisions, and you're still making creative decisions that affect the narrative, right?
Right.
So directing is literally, in my mind, the perfect combination of all of those disciplines. Um, and so yeah, I mean that's what I moved out here to do. I kind of got into a windy path before I actually got my chance to do it.
Hmm.
And hopefully I'll get to do it again, but the silly little coronavirus pandemic certainly has made that a challenge, because production just kind of shut down across the board for 6 months plus. Um,
Right.
but things are starting to open back up, and thank God people liked the movie that I did, and those conversations about what I'm going to direct next are ongoing. So the problem is it's hard to get people to give you money to direct. It just
Right.
it just is. The great catch 22 is you can't direct something unless you've directed something.
Mm. That's a tough one.
It is a really tough nut to crack. I mean,
Hmm.
that's why I did, a Lifetime movie. At the end of the day, was I don't have, a network of family friends who are all rich dentists to give me money to go make an independent film. I did I that was I Someone gave me an opportunity. Nancy Leopardi and Ross Kahn gave me an opportunity to go make a low budget movie, and I took it. You know.
Hmm. And I think you did a great job. I remember getting a screener from you for the All Pair Nightmare, and yes, I knew it was a Lifetime movie, but I also knew you were behind it. You're directing it, so I expected good things, and I wasn't disappointed. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. It really means a lot. I can't remember who said it. There was another horror critic like you who reviewed it, who said something to the tune of, Joe tricked me into liking a Lifetime movie. Um,
That's good.
uh, And we really were trying to do something that had a real darkness underneath the Lifetime veneer, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think, from the reaction, and from the reaction of the horror community, I think we succeeded. You know, there's, some of the audience that consume Lifetime movies on the regular, they're used to having every little detail spelled out by the end.
Right.
But we didn't give all the answers at the end, and I did that on purpose because I thought it was far more unsettling not to know whether the antagonist, was truly justifiably crazy or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I to me that's very unsettling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and but to some people who are used to having all the answers, they're like, what is this harsh shit?
Yeah,
Uh,
you kind of blew their mind.
but thank God they let me get away with it. It would have been a real shame to have to just kind of give answers to some of those questions that hopefully will stick with you and make you think about what you watched a little bit more than the average TV movie.
And maybe you'd like turn some of those Lifetime people into horror fans, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, maybe it can be a little bit of a gateway horror. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It's been so funny too though because I'm so synonymous, with my horror shorts and the Blood List and Nightmare Cinema and Post Mortem and such. So many friends and friends of friends are like, oh, I don't know, it's probably going to be too scary. I'm like, it's really not. Uh, but it's my reputation, I guess, precedes me.
Mm-hmm. What was the how was the experience, being your first full length directing job? How was that?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. It was. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm really proud of what we accomplished. We had very, very little money, and we had a 14-day schedule, and we only had one camera. So it was a real grind to
Mm-hmm.
try and get a movie that looked hopefully bigger than the budget we had.
It
Uh,
definitely did. Yeah.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it was take the number you're probably thinking and probably divide it in half. You
Wow.
know,
Mm-hmm.
um, and and when you think comparatively, like the Into the Dark Hulu movies,
Mm-hmm.
they get 16 days and they get about $2 million and they get 2 to 3 cameras. You know,
Right.
like we had to make the same length movie for a fraction of that cost. With one camera and 2 less days. So it was tough.
Right.
It requires a lot of planning, as I'm sure talking to people. Pre-production is where you do most of the work.
Right.
But the problem was the production kept shifting things. Uh, Locations were changing, rules at locations were changing, the schedule was changing. And we kind of had to roll with all those punches and still try to make a movie I could use as a directing sample to kind of open doors for me in the future and give them a product that was gonna uh, sell in the way they needed it to make their money back.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tricky. It was not an easy movie to make by any stretch of the imagination, but we had fun doing it. And
Right.
the cast, I think that's the sign of a good production. Hopefully, is they didn't know that there were all of these kind of that that we were tightrope walking a lot of stuff. Um,
Right.
and and until after when I kind of let them in on some of the craziness. But I think if you asked any one of them, that they would tell you that they got to do some really great work. And to me, that means I did my job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like what you said, they were like half the budget of a Blumhouse film. It still had that same feeling like one of the Into the Darkness films. That's like a good comparison there. Like it felt like it could be one of those films. Like you would never know the budget you were working with is what you had. It's crazy.
Yeah, and like I said, half, take what you're thinking, and it's even smaller than that.
Hmm.
So it was a real challenge, but yeah, nobody's really ever said anything about that. I think thank God I had the Nightmare Cinema DP, Andrew Russo, not related, but my brother from another mother, and he just made it look like a million bucks.
Hmm.
And he's done a lot of these smaller movies for these producers, and he knows kind of the pace you have to keep. So we had a little like thing where I'd look over at him, and he'd tap his wrist to insinuate we needed to move, and we would move.
Hmm.
And that coupled with I had a great assistant director uh, named Artie Carlson, and he ran a tight ship, and we that kind of triumvirate. We managed to kind of roll with some really wild circumstances. Like one of the big ones was when we went to go shoot the last scene of the movie. We found out that the location, which we had secured 2 weeks prior, uh, was double booked for a high school graduation, and about 1,000 people were about to descend upon where we were going to shoot the
Oh
end of the
man.
movie.
Hmm.
And we had to. So basically, they said, "Look, you've got an hour window where all of these people are going to be in an auditorium. You have to shoot the whole scene then."
Hmm.
And that was really tough, I mean, to get something that to end the movie on a nice button that feels, full,
Hmm.
and to do it in an hour with the sun setting at the same time, it was a real challenge. But
Yeah,
but I think we succeeded.
I totally agree. You were thrown into the fire and you came out on the other side just fine. So,
But into that though, I'd done lots and lots of short films before that, so
hmm.
had I not had those experiences, had I been a true writer, making my you know, debut as a director, and not having had production experiences, I think I would have gotten steamrolled, you know.
Right.
Um
Yeah.
luckily I had the experience of doing all these shorts. Luckily I had the experience of being on set for Nightmare Cinema. So going into it, I was far more prepared for some of the chaos that can ensue, that until you've done it, you really just can't imagine.
Right. Yeah, it sounds like a giant uphill battle, but I think that makes you stronger, especially for your next when your next film comes out, when you're directing your next film.
Yeah, no, I think so too, and I think whatever that is, whatever that'll be, I'm I you level up, you get more experience points.
Hmm.
So I I can't wait to get behind the camera again and do the next one, because it's going to be that much better for it.
Right. And it's coming up soon. Like I said, everything's opening up now, which is awesome. And things are slowly getting back to normal.
Yeah, if I can just get Alejandro Brugués to stop taking all my scripts from me.
Oh, that's no good.
Well, yeah, no, no, I tease. I love Alejandro, and but he's got my next, he's doing my next movie.
Hmm.
So which I'm really excited about.
Can you
Um,
talk any about that or
yeah, sure. What do you want to know about it?
yeah, just name the movie and like just tell me a little bit about it.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's called, well, right now it's called The Last Will and Testament of Charles Abernathy.
Hmm.
And we have sold it to Netflix,
Nice.
and it starts shooting in 2 weeks, um, which is wild. So we wrote the script a couple years ago, and it was on this thing called the Blood List. You know what the Blood List is?
Yes, I remember you mentioned that on the episode. Oh, yeah, I think you were doing it was an Ask Mick episode, I believe, and you were talking about it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so at the end of the year, um, there's a couple screenwriting lists that pool executives and producers around town, and they ask them what their favorite movies are, or
Mhm.
I'm sorry, their favorite screenplays are that they read from the year. And
Right.
so so there was this thing that came out of that called the Blacklist, and much like the Oscars, the Blacklist started to really focus on, you know, non-genre movies, more like dramas and comedies and such. And so Kaylee Marsh, who's a manager at Brillstein,
Mhm.
she saw an opportunity. She saw like that there should be a blood list. There should be a dark genre list that highlights the best, scripts and horror and sci-fi.
Mhm.
So she started that list. I think it's in its like 11th or 12th year now. And we were really lucky. We were on the list 3 years in a row with three different scripts, and it really just kind of helped launch our writing career, my partner and I. And
Right.
one of those scripts was The Last Will and Testament of Charles Abernathy. And, Netflix was looking for, horror properties that, checked off a couple specific boxes. And the script happened to do that. And so they picked it up last October. And it's been kind of a whirlwind since. Um, when this releases in the next couple of weeks, I mean, yeah, we're shooting in May, so October to May. So
Mhm.
it's been a really, really amazing experience so far. Just watching the process, because like if you look at Nightmare Cinema, I mean, gosh, that from when we first sold the, quote unquote the script on that was,
Mhm.
man, that was fall 2015. You know,
Wow. Mhm.
and then what? The movie didn't come out until 2019.
Mhm.
So that was a long road on that one. And this one sold in, granted we wrote it a couple of years ago, but this one sold in October 2020, and it'll be released sometime in 2022.
Wow.
So it's been incredible to just watch the machinery move so quickly. Um,
Mhm.
so I mean, Alejandro, I think he was between them finishing his deal, and I think there was maybe 2 weeks before they flew him up to Canada to go start
Uh-huh.
prep. I mean, that it was that fast.
Wow. Yeah, they
Yeah.
snatched it up really fast.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's been. I mean, look, but that's the thing is like once you find the money to make a movie, things can move very quickly. And
Right.
there's if there's one thing that Netflix isn't short on right now, it's cash.
Yeah, they're huge.
Unbelievable. It's just an unbelievable machine. So, hopefully this will be the first of many with them. I would love that.
That'll be. I hope so for you. I mean, that'll be really cool.
I mean, we've had a really smooth experience on this one so far, so fingers crossed.
Yep. I have my fingers crossed for you.
Appreciate that.
Um, what's a quick synopsis of this film that's going to be coming out?
Sure. So kind of the log line pitch is Charles Abernathy. It's the night before his 75th birthday, and he invites his four estranged children home. They haven't seen each other in years, and he
Mm-hmm.
tells them that he believes something or someone is coming to kill him before midnight,
Mm-hmm.
and the only people he can trust to keep him alive are his children because he's taken their inheritances and put them on the line. And if he's found dead by dawn, he'll get nothing. They'll get nothing.
Mm. I
So
like the
that's
sound of that.
thanks, man. Yeah, no, it's fun. It was, I'm a big fan of the original Vincent Price, House on Haunted Hill, and I to me, I always thought that this could be kind of like a fun little homage to that. I love the idea of characters being locked in a house with
hmm
a lot of money on the line and a kind of a supernatural element that they have to confront.
hmm
So that was kind of the genesis was, how do we tell a supernatural update to House on Haunted Hill, but do it for kind of a the era of the one percenter billionaires, you know.
Right. I think that'll work well, especially, in this time and age.
God, I sure hope so. But Alejandro is a great director. I mean, I absolutely adored his segment of Nightmare Cinema, and
Hmm.
you know, Juan of the Dead and Puka Lives are a blast. So, we had such a great experience working on, those movies that I'm really lucky that, he ended up booking this job. It was kind of ironic though. He read the script a couple years ago. When we were in post on the Au Pair Nightmare,
Hmm.
he came over to my editor's place and watched the movie to give us feedback. And when it was over, he turned to me and he was like, "That was pretty good. I realize I've never read any of your scripts. Can you send me some stuff to read?"
Hmm.
And so I sent him that, and I sent him one of the other Bloodless scripts, and he loved both of them. So it was pretty incredible that a year and a half later, when Netflix was meeting with directors, that he got in the mix and ended up winning the day. You know,
Yeah.
so I guess he really did actually kind of like it.
No, that's killer news. I mean, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it felt kind of kismet. So.
Sometimes things align like that, like the cosmic forces or whatever, they align and cool shit happens.
Yeah, and every time he complains about the script, I just remind him that there were a lot of other really good directors that could have been making this movie.
Nice. Touche, right? You said House on Haunted Hill was one of your favorite films or whatever, the original. What are some of your other favorite films? They don't really necessarily have to be horror.
Oh, I mean, gosh, it's so hard. I love so many movies, but
Hmm.
my kind of top five, I guess, are Ghostbusters is my favorite movie of all time.
Nice.
And it was definitely my gateway into horror.
Hmm.
Uh, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Back to the Future, Empire Strikes Back, and Jaws. I mean, I'm a Spielberg, Lucas product of the '80s through and through, um,
Right.
and I don't care.
That's a solid list, man. And like Jaws is one of my favorite films too. Like especially going to fishing with my dad when I was a kid. We'd watch Jaws every summer, like before we started like going fishing. We used to fish for sharks and all too, so which made it that much scarier. So
Oh
we watch
wow,
Jaws
yeah.
every summer, then go fishing. It's like, oh shit, just, when are
That
we
that
gonna
would have
hook up a
probably
great
scared
white?
scare the crap out of me. We went to Cape Cod a lot, which is very close to where Amity is in the story.
Hmm.
So when I grew up, that we went to the beaches a lot, and but yeah, that I just it's such an amazing movie. I mean, look, like Spielberg's my favorite director, so like you could probably point to just about any of his movies, and I'll tell you I love it.
Hmm.
I mean, Jurassic Park and E.T. and what have you. And John Carpenter, I love John Carpenter's movies. The Thing, Halloween, pretty much that whole run from like the late '70s to the late '80s. I think he's just made masterpiece after masterpiece.
Agreed.
I grew up on Joe Dante's stuff, Gremlins, Explorers. So that was something that was really special in doing Nightmare Cinema, was just getting to watch someone that literally I probably ran the VHS tape of Explorers into the ground. You know,
Hmm.
so getting to watch him work was pretty special, and annoying him by asking him questions about Explorers was pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, look, you probably could name a movie, and I'll tell you that I adore it. The Exorcist, Alien. I mean, all sorts of. My taste is pretty broad. Um,
Right. Yeah, that's a good list, and it's cool that you have love for all the genres. That's a good thing.
yeah, the only things I'm not really big on are westerns and war movies.
Yeah,
Never.
I don't do the war movies much. Westerns, like Pale Rider's cool. Tombstone's definitely cool. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
that,
Quick and the Dead is pretty fun.
yes, that's a good one.
But like I don't like actively seek those movies out. But yeah, other than that, I mean, gosh, I mean, like Cameron Crowe, I love Cameron Crowe movies.
Mhm.
He just like taps into my sappy emotional side so much. I think it's so cool that Mick and Cameron did that like teenage rock journalist thing together in San Diego at the same time.
Right. Yeah,
You know,
that's
I,
crazy. Yeah.
it's I every time I hear those stories, like it just brings up all those warm feelings that Almost Famous does. And but look, I could wax on forever about different types of movies and different genres that I love. But in different directors, I just I'm a connoisseur of movies.
hmm I'm on the same boat with you. Like I said, horror is my favorite, but I still love like 80s comedies. I like 80s teen movies like Pretty in Pink, stuff like that,
Oh my God,
Sci-fi.
yeah, John Hughes. Oh my
Oh
God, I
yeah,
love
John
John
Hughes.
Hughes.
Yep.
I mean, I can't think of a director who probably I watch. I mean, gosh, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles,
Oh,
Thanksgiving,
love that
Home
one.
Alone, Christmas Vacation at Christmas. He's a part of my annual rotation. I mean,
hmm
same with Mick with Hocus Pocus around Halloween.
Yes.
So like there are directors who are literally ingrained into my schedule, my life.
hmm
There are movies that I literally plan my day around. I had a on the 21st of April, I had a
hmm
buddy call me and he's like, "Hey, can we talk?" I was like, "No, I'm watching The Fog."
Yeah, I missed that day. I'm like, oh, shit, that's Fog Day.
Uh, I try to watch it every either April 20th to sync with the transition into the 21st, around the 21st. I try to watch it around then, and he's like, Joe, what are you gonna do when the pandemic's over and people call you to do things? You're gonna really be like, I have to sit at home and watch The Fog on April 21st? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, that's important, I think. And it's cool that you can tie those into those certain dates like that. It makes it feel extra special.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like an
So
event.
yeah, I love, look, around Halloween, my wife will let me go carte blanche and watch as much horror as I can consume. The rest of the year, it's kind of like I have to negotiate for the TV. But I love watching Halloween movies at Halloween. I don't mean Halloween franchise. I just mean movies set at Halloween.
Yeah.
Um, it just, to me, it just helps, it just makes it part of the season. And granted, watching the Halloween movies is part of that.
Yeah, agreed.
That's Michael's my favorite of the slashers. So he goes in a pretty heavy rotation in October.
Yeah, it's not October without Halloween. I usually try to keep Halloween though for like the day of Halloween.
Me
It
too.
works,
Me too.
it works right
I'll
that way.
watch all the sequels like sporadically around the month. But yeah, I save John Carpenter's Halloween for Halloween, unless I'm going to like an event. Like a couple years ago when there was the 40th anniversary.
hmm
I think I watched it like three times that in like a couple weeks because I saw it at USC, and then I think they did something at, I think it was at Cinespia, the Hollywood Forever Cemetery. They played it there, and
hmm
so and then I watched it on Halloween. I just look, that is my favorite horror movie, Halloween. So um, I just think it's a masterpiece.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Total masterpiece. Like it holds up today like it was back when it first came out, still has that same like chilling feel to it. Like it's like an ice cold feeling when you watch that movie. Like Michael Myers is an ice cold slasher, you know.
So interesting. To me it's like a warm nostalgia blanket now. But but yeah, it is chilling when you really think about what's happening. But
hmm
it bubbles all of the right feelings up for me. Is Scream is my second favorite.
hmm
And I again, it just takes me back to sixth grade when I saw that movie for the first time, and it just blew my mind. It was so scary, but then it became so fun over time. And I mean, to me, Scream is, I know people go back and forth between Scream and Nightmare on Elm Street, but I think Scream was Wes operating with a brilliant screenplay at the height of his powers. And
Uh,
I just think it's his masterpiece.
it's up there. I'm still a Nightmare on Elm Street fan over Scream, but Scream is still really awesome, and that was a part of my growing up. Both of those actually, because I'm a kid of the late '80s, early '90s. So Nightmare on Elm Street, and when I was a teenager, Scream. So
Yep. It sounds like we were on the same track for sure.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah, so I mean, but yeah, I'm all over the place in terms of my fandom.
I got one of the big questions I want to ask you was how did you and Mick Garris meet?
So Mick Garris and I were introduced by a producer who's got a credit on Nightmare Cinema for the introduction. His name is David Harris.
Hmm.
He's a friend, and he knew I was a fan of Mick's, and he knew Mick was trying to see if he could find a partner to do an anthology with, um, and so we got linked up from that. I was a development executive at the time at a production company, and Mick came in for a general meeting, and that's how we first met. Very very kind of traditional industry way of meeting,
Hmm.
um, and he was looking to try to do a soft reboot of Masters of Horror, and I just loved Masters,
Oh, same
and
here.
I the opportunity of being able to learn from Mick and learn from his peers was too alluring for me to not pursue, even though everyone and their mother will tell you don't make an anthology because they're hard to sell. They're
Hmm.
really hard to sell. But I just thought, gosh, the proof is in the pudding with Masters. His contacts are just unbelievable. Like how can we not sell this? And
Right.
I get, I mean, it wasn't exactly what we thought it was going to be at the onset. It became something else, in Nightmare Cinema. But I guess I was right.
You definitely were. I mean, Nightmare Cinema is awesome. I have a special edition VHS of it that Witter Entertainment did.
Oh, those are great. I'm so
Uh,
glad you snagged one. I have one too. It's beautiful.
I think I got the one with the it's like a special edition. I think it's like the big box edition maybe. It's one of them that they did, and it's got like a note from the directors inside of it. It's really cool.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I have not run that VHS. I don't have a VHS player, but I don't intend to. It sits on a shelf, very proudly displayed next to the Rotten Tomatoes certified fresh trophy.
Nice.
And you know, and no, I'm really proud of that movie. I'm really, it means a lot that it was so embraced by the fans. Um, I'm so like happy that it had a nice critical reception too, and
Hmm.
and I think it found a really great home being on Shudder. I just think it's that's the right audience to have access to that movie. You know,
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Shutter is for like the fans.
yeah, yeah. No, I think the world of them, and I love all the content they're putting out, and I feel like every Friday night that Joe Bob runs is like it's an event, you
It
know.
is.
And it really brings, especially during the pandemic when we can't go to movie theaters as
Hmm.
a communal experience, to have Joe Bob pick a movie and everyone on Twitter is discussing it. I think
Yep.
it's really a fun thing. I really like. I'm gonna miss when we actually have to start going out of our homes again, and we can't. I don't have a good enough excuse to sit home and watch Joe Bob.
Oh, I always make that a priority. And like Fridays when Joe Bob's on, 9 o'clock, I'm ready to go. I got my energy drink there because I fall asleep pretty early. I
See now,
usually can make it through the second film, but most of the time I don't.
see now that's the thing though. You're on the East Coast, 9 o'clock. I could justify being home by 9 o'clock to watch Joe
Right.
Bob. 6 o'clock.
Oh
You know,
yeah, yeah, you're right. It's a
out
lot
in
early.
LA. That's a
Mm-hmm.
little tougher. It's a little tougher.
Yeah.
You really got to be like, I'm gonna not do anything tonight. I'm gonna sit home and watch Joe Bob. But luckily, my it's really funny to watch. I mean, luckily the movies he picks are usually kind of older and they're usually kind of over the top, and
Hmm.
that's the kind of horror that my wife will watch more willingly. Uh,
Right.
the new stuff, the edgier stuff, the scarier stuff, harder to get her to sit down and watch it. The Ring like ruined horror movies for her. It was the scariest thing she's ever seen. She refuses to ever watch it again. Uh, and so it's always a little bit of a navigation to get her to watch a new horror movie. Usually I'll have to screen it first and tell her, if it's too scary or not.
Right.
But Joe Bob is just right, and I think she really enjoys his rants. You
Hmm.
know, his rants are really intoxicating and informative, and she definitely listens and chuckles, and we usually get we'll get some takeout and we'll sit and we'll watch Joe Bob.
I love the live tweeting, like you said. That's like fun as hell. I was doing that last night for they did Ginger Snaps and damn, I can't remember the second movie was on. I
Oh, they're
fell
doing
asleep during the
fried
second.
berry, fried
Yeah,
berry.
Fried Berry.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I started watching that and I woke up in the middle of it and I was like, shit, I done missed half the fucking movie. So
You're gonna have to go back and start over.
yeah,
Yeah, it was getting late and I couldn't do it either. But Ginger Snaps was awesome to
I
watch. I
love
really
Ginger
enjoyed
Snaps.
really enjoyed revisiting that and watching it. And seeing the tweets and stuff too.
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll engage. Sometimes I'll tweet back, but sometimes it's to me it can be hard to watch the movie and tweet. When the Au Pair Nightmare debuted on Lifetime,
Hmm.
it's the same thing with these Lifetime movies. There's a huge devoted following of people on Twitter who will
Hmm.
live tweet the movie. Uh,
Uh-huh.
and oh my gosh, it was so much fun to interact with them on Twitter and watch them responding in real time and trying to guess where the plot was going. And because I think we had a twistier, turnier script than they're used to, like we constantly were surprising them.
Hmm.
Um, and it was really fun to see that response and to just especially when you're not because we were only able to do one theatrical screening of the Au Pair because of the pandemic and literally we had it on March 12th and everything shut down on March 13th, uh,
Right.
which was so I'm so lucky we were able to sneak it in and I could actually see it with a live audience and it played really well.
Hmm.
But the watching the movie along with people on Twitter, watching the Au Pair along on Twitter was really fun. Um, didn't quite get that experience. It wasn't quite the Nightmare Cinema Film Festival roadshow that we had.
Right. Right.
But it definitely made up for nothing at all.
Yeah. And the reviews I've seen nothing but good reviews. I didn't see anything negative for your film, so I think that's cool too.
Yeah, honestly, all of the reviews were really positive and encouraging. I think everyone was really surprised. Um, Look, I think the bar is pretty low for that genre. So I think we delivered a good story with good acting and some surprises, and it was well shot. People I think were really pleasantly surprised with it, and I'm very happy about that.
How was the Lifetime crowd on Twitter? Did it have is their following as big as The Last Drive-In or close to it or?
Oh my gosh, I mean, I don't know if it's quite as big, but they were. I mean, it was like I couldn't look up from my computer screen. Like
Wow.
it was you know, constantly getting tweeted at, constant, refreshing of the hashtag and all sorts of memes. And, it was a really, really exciting, night, which otherwise probably, I would have loved to have had a watch party and had some people over to watch the movie and that would have been really fun, but it just, it wasn't in the cards with the pandemic, so
Right.
this is the next best thing.
Yeah, you still made the best out of it, that's for sure. You conquered the virus, from my point of view.
Yeah, we had we actually had a really nice socially distanced premiere for the Bruce Willis movie, um, that I wrote. They did it like a big drive-in screening, and they had a DJ, and they had this big screen and all these cars, and everyone was honking horns. That was pretty fun. That was
That's
that.
on Netflix as well, right? What's the name of that one again?
That one is on Netflix. It's called Hard Kill.
Okay. I think that's
Yeah.
still in my queue. Yeah, I haven't watched it. I don't do a lot of Netflix like I should because Shutter takes most of my time. So,
Well,
but that's
there's
definitely my
lots.
queue
You
to
know what?
watch.
That Shutter would probably rather you say that than the otherwise.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, no, I mean, look, Hard Kill is it was it went through a lot of changes. It is not the script we sold by any stretch. I
Mhm.
would say maybe like 10% of what we originally wrote is in the final movie. Um, and it had to go through a lot of rewrites to fit the eventual budget and schedule that they had, and that's tough.
Right.
They shot the movie in an impossibly low schedule, and I think Matt, the director, was given very limited resources, and he fought tooth and nail to make the best of those resources. And but I'll tell you this:
Hmm.
we shot it right before the pandemic hit, like literally a month before the pandemic hit,
Uh-huh.
and we put money in the crew's pockets. Gave them work right before a long stretch where they weren't going to have any,
Uh-huh.
and the movie did really well for the producers, and it was the number two movie on Netflix over Thanksgiving weekend. You know,
That's
um,
killer.
amazing. But I definitely have a more distanced relationship to it, just because it changed so much from what we'd written, versus Nightmare Cinema and Au Pair, which I think are very reflective of what you know me as a director and producer wanted those movies to be.
Right. Yeah, and those two are so solid, I think those carry your name, big time and, overshadow like, the Bruce Willis movie that only use like 10% of your script for. So,
Yeah, it's it's tough when you see something on social media where they're like, oh, like why would the writers write something like that? And it's like we didn't.
or you get tagged in a Marvel movie thing. I see that happen to you a lot.
Well, that's a whole other can of worms. It was funny. I guess I had to try to fix this, but there's a industry equivalent of IMDb, like that has more contact information on it, called Studio System.
Uh-huh.
And it's really expensive. I don't have an account because it's like $3,000 a year or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But a studio level exec went looking into Nightmare Cinema, and it links to the Marvel Joe Russo on that platform. So she called my friend at Joe Russo's company, Agbo, and
Hmm.
she's like, "Did Joe do this horror movie?" And she's like, "No, let me introduce you to the right one."
That's crazy.
It's so, yeah, so it happens not just on social media, it happens in town too. Uh,
Hmm.
so but it's fun, and like, I think, like, oh God, right, I guess it was right before the pandemic. I got sent from uh, a college in the United Kingdom, a university in the United Kingdom, sent me an honorary doctorate opportunity, uh, thinking I was other Joe Russo, and
Uh-huh.
so I forwarded it to him, and he got back to me and said thank you, and so so he is very aware of me, and I have his info, and he has mine, and we definitely, when things like that cross paths, we're cordial about it.
Yeah, that's cool though,
Yeah, and we've come close-ish once or twice to doing something with his company.
Hmm.
I like I said, I have a friend there who's a VP, and there was something with Alejandro a couple years ago that we were I would say inches away from maybe setting up there. So I think down the road, there might be a Joe Russo collaboration. I wouldn't rule it out.
That'd be cool. Maybe we get like a horror Marvels movie. So I know they got the graphic novels like that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. It's funny. I don't know how much more they're going to do in the Marvel space. Like, I really think now that they're, the highest grossing directors of all time,
Hmm.
they're going to try and, do their own stuff for a little while. So, we'll have to see. But I know they want to do some more horror movies. They did, oh shit, I can't think of the name of the movie right now. Here, I don't know if you, okay. They're doing more horror movies now. They actually did that produced that movie Relic that Natalie Erica James did last year.
Okay.
Um, and so they're those conversations are ongoing. There's been one or two things they've brought to me to consider pitching on, and none of them are quite right yet, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know they did Relic. I haven't seen Relic yet. I've heard good things about it.
It's a really good like art house slow burn indie. I know you're a big Mandy fan, so
Oh yeah.
maybe if you can hang with the slow burn stuff, then maybe it's for you. It's really really well made, really well done.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with some good slow burn stuff.
Yeah. Well, if you check it out, you have to let me know.
Okay, I will do that. Well, Joe, I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, me too, Brandon. I'm really glad we got to do this.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and now that I have a platform that we can actually talk like this, I think it's really cool.
Yeah, maybe we can do this again when Abernathy comes out and I can drag Alejandro along.
That would be great. I'm totally down for that. So you just let me know.
Will do. Well, I'm sure. Hopefully you'll hear about it before then. But yes, we will. More to come, my friend.
Excellent. And you stay safe. You and your family stay safe. And the COVID virus shit is almost over, so it's a good thing.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Yes. Take care, Joe.
You too.
Alrighty. Bye.